Over here, I can quickly see the situation overall. There is one huge page that monitors every single economic data release from January 1st, 2025. High impact news are more like the bang sounds. This kind of things they instantly affect. There are some news releases that are telling you what will likely happen if it is not tackled now. The economic calendar is by far one of the most important tools you can ever have as a trader. Matter of fact, this is the thing that tells you the exact direction an economy is heading to without you having to pay for it. It is literally free, out there, and accessible. However, reading it is easy. The only problem now is you have so much information that storing all those information in your head as a human being is impossible. Okay, not really impossible because there are a lot of people who are extreme wildcards in this world. So nearly impossible. Let's put it like that. Why do I say so? Every day a bunch of news is released, and due to yesterday's and some previous news, today's news is going to be quite different. And then things happen every second, and that leads to change in that news. So the right thing to do is to be able to track it some way, somehow, in a method that you can see when changes are occurring to know whether you should start buying in or stop buying into something. In that case, you need a tracker. Basically, a tracker that does look at all those information for you. Now, there are a lot of trackers out there. They are not free. They are very expensive. However, you can create a free one for yourself, and that is what this video is completely centered around. Creating for yourself a free tracker that is able to look at the market, collect that information, and tell you sentiments of what is happening. Is it bearish? Is it bullish? Or is it neutral right now? And that is what we're going to be discussing. However, it is not just a discussion class, it is a practical class where you will create one for yourself in the go-through. This is because I've had people reach out to me both privately and publicly about the dashboard I created about a month ago. That dashboard goes something like this. So let's assume you want to look through US dollar and Japanese yen. Over here, I can quickly see the situation overall, the situation in the last 14 days, and the changes that is likely occurring. Now, you may be confused why it is painted in 3 different lines. Don't worry, that is what this video is going to be explaining as time goes on. And then I could also come here and place a straight tracking on that situation again and see what is happening over the variance and score. And I can come here and specifically zero out the US dollar and the Japanese yen alone. And I can tell you fully well, this is what I can see. And it is easy to read. However, it didn't just appear by itself, right? There has to be a lot of calculation and tracking behind. This is where the Excel I created came through. Now, the Excel I created, if we start from the back, you would see similar dashboard in chart. It's your choice. You could decide to have it in Power BI or Excel. However, in my case, I have it on both. All those information come through from these 2 pages you see here. But these 2 pages also come through because of other smaller pages that exist in this same workbook. And all of this also come through because there is one huge page that monitors every single economic data release from January 1st, 2025. And this calculation here is being rendered thanks to the very first page called the news page. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the news page. This is the very first video of the series where we will talk about every single page in this workbook and what it means, what it does, the formulas involved, and how to create it for yourself. The news page. Now, the news page is all about just the news title itself. We're trying to quantify every news title to what it really entails. The news title here, in this case, let's take, for example, the BOJ core CPI, or let's just take the word CPI for its own stance. Now, CPI on its own is a important news. Important in what sense? If you go to any economic calendar, right? If you go to any economic calendar and you search for CPI, you would notice it is a high impact news. This is on forexfactory.com. We'll go to investing.com and, well, I don't want to damage this page, so I'm going to duplicate it. And now we can search for CPI in particular. So when I click on filter, I type in CPI. It's going to set through CPI and we could just click on any of them. When you click on it, you can see it, it's 3 stars covered. You hover your mouse over it, you see it's high volatility expected. Now, these are news that really impacts the market. Why? Because these kinds of news release or data release, traders focus a lot on them because, again, this kind of news literally talks about the main situation of that economy. So CPI, very important, right? However, there are so many other news apart from CPI. There's the PMI, PPI, there's the hourly wage release, there's the GDP, and so many more. Now, my advice for you is to do this dashboard, you can only use investing.com unless you find a way to clean up the data on other websites yourself. I don't mind. For me, I personally use investing.com because its data cleanup is way more easier. That is the second reason. The main reason is because it has way more data releases compared to forexfactory.com. Why and how does it do that and how is it important? Well, it is this. So we're going to take a car analogy. Take a good look at your vehicle. Let's use a drawing board for this situation, right? We're going to use a drawing board for this situation. Allow me get a drawing board, please. All right, so I'm back. Now, let's take your car as a credible analogy, right? Your car. Your car gives you a clunky sound on a Tuesday, right? Well, yeah, I'm noticing some lags here. I'm kind of using the tablets to draw, so it's lagging behind when it's working. Let's just attempt to use it like this. So your car gives you a clunky sound on a Tuesday. It doesn't necessarily mean your car is going to go off, right? Your car could keep working for, let's say, 2 months with that sound. That is, let's just be free giving. It could work for 2 straight months with that sound and not go off. And then that sound is later going to increase to a loud shooting sound. Let's say after a while you hear some shooting sounds like tush, tush. That kind of situation. The lag here is too much. Let's try. Okay, now we can actually use it properly. So you have some shooting sounds. This is like way after 2 months. 2 months ago, it was just clunky sound like click once in a while. Now it's shooting. And then someday you're on the highway, your car suddenly makes a bang and probably goes off immediately after that. So what has happened is your car has progressed from just small issues to bigger ground issues to the worst possible issue it can ever have in just probably, let's call it 5 months. Maybe this was 2 months too. All right, let's say this was 2 months and this was 1 month later. It couldn't bear it anymore. So your car went through these 3 situations. Now, high impact news are more like the bang sounds. This kind of things, they instantly affect, like their effect is instantly felt, right? Then we have medium impact news, which their effect is felt. However, it's just noise. You hear it, it's disturbing, but it doesn't stop the entire process. And then there is the low impact news, which is heard, but it doesn't stop your car. It doesn't even make much disturbance to your driving. That is exactly how high impact news, low impact news, and medium impact news really look like in the market. Now, sorry for butchering this the situation of that, but that is like the simplest way any beginner can understand it. Now, with all of that understanding, what you're going to see is it means one thing led to another. Those low impact news you see that they tell you don't pay attention to it is low impact news. I mean, it's not so important, right? They are like they are like signs. They tell you some other things too. Though they are all kind of the bank space, what happened right now. However, some tell you what happened right now will lead to something else later, and we'll explain that in another scenario. Now, low impact, medium impact, high impact. You need to collect all of them. All of them. That way you can read the market long before the market gives you a high impact disaster. Put that in mind. That is where you get the event rank from. So each news is given a proper event ranking. For example, truck sales, if it is heavy impact, low impact, or medium impact, CPI is high impact, obviously. You have something like, let's see, commodity prices, low impact, CPIs. Most CPIs are high impact, not all, a lot of them. This is one thing you need to pay attention to in investing.com. Not all CPIs are high impact. There are some that are medium, and then there are some that are very high. For example, if you look down here, you'd see trimmed CPI is high, trimmed mean CPI is high, core PPI is actually medium. But if we look for the PPI itself, it's high. So situations like that, pay attention to them. They're important. That is for event ranking. Now, I converted high to 3, medium to 2, low to 1. Numbers. This is something you need to know. Excel works best with numbers. If you use letters and words, you will end up writing stories as your formula. But when there are numbers, you can easily do plus, minus, multiply, divide, arithmetics, right? Quickly, easy for you to analyze something with numbers. Now, not all news are bullish when the actual is greater than forecast, right? We all know this simply by looking at investing.com or Forex Factory. You would notice sometimes a higher amount gives you green. Sometimes that same higher amount on another news will give you red, meaning they're already telling you straight up right from the calendar that this particular kind of news, if the news comes out in this manner, it is good. If it comes out in another manner, it is bad. You can clearly see that from the calendar itself. You don't need any external helper to tell you this. Now, something else you need to pay attention to is just like we just analyzed the very first site, right? We just analyzed the impact of a news. There are 3 types of news. Same way, same analogy. There are some news that are like the clunky sound. Why are they like clunky sounds? There are news that tells you your car is bad, but it's not so bad right now. So let's call this an informational news, a leading news factor. This will lead to something else. That is what this clunky sound is all about. Now, there are news that they are telling you because of the first set of news you got, this is what is happening right now. So that's the shooting sound. Because of the clunky sound you heard that you didn't deal with for 2 months, now you are having clunky sounds, and this is a coincidence. So we'll call this coincidence. And then there is the final part that because all of this has happened, that is the clunky sound plus the shooting sound has happened, the car banged and went off. We'll call this lagging. Why do we call this lagging? Because this is like the last thing. It is a lagging thing. It only comes up because the other ones has happened. So it is a lagging information. Now, with this in mind, again, look back at all the news. There are some news releases that are telling you what will likely happen if it is not tackled now. Let's take a look at some news releases in this situation. I'm going to filter out for leading news. And the leading news are all, give the PC some time. So we have something like, I'm looking for a popular news, something that everybody is aware of. something that anybody can see. So jobless claims. Yep, that is one big news. Initial jobless claim. It is big. However, it is not the kind of news that people take for granted. For example, jobless claim means a lot of people are claiming that they don't have work. If a lot of people are claiming they don't have work, what do you think would happen next? It leads to something. I won't tell you what happens next, but obviously it leads to something. That is jobless claim being a leading news. Now let's go to a coincident news. A coincident news is all about because jobless claim increased, right? Because jobless claims increase, let's look at something else. Let's go for something job application ratio, or let's look for something that is somewhere around jobs. Should I use something like jobs, or let's use interest rates? But they are all related. I'm just looking for something that easily explains that situation. Okay, good. Let's look at car sales. So because a lot of people are claiming joblessness, right? Do you think car sales will go up? I want you to you can go down to the comment section and tell me what you think. Do you think car sales will go up when a lot of people are saying they are jobless? Obviously not. It's going to go down, right? Meaning people are not able to afford vehicles. And if you notice, this is because people no longer had jobs. So it is a coincidence. Now let's look at a lagging indicator. Now, because people are not buying cars anymore, right? People are not buying cars. You can see how that led to something totally not even expected as a job situation. People are not buying cars anymore. What do you think happened to the very few buyers of cars available, right? There's little demand for a vehicle at this point. What happens to price of cars? Price of cars are going to drop. So the price of cars situation becomes a lagging situation. Price of cars dropped because there was less demand for cars. There was less demand of cars because people did not have money to buy cars again. So that is it. Now, inverse it and look at the situation. If a lot of people are having jobs, meaning a lot of people will have money to buy cars. If a lot of people are buying cars, there's high demand for cars. Hence, supply is limited and prices of cars are going to go up. So, situation leading, coincidental, lagging. The leading is people's job. The coincidental is the car sales. The lagging is car price. So you have leading, lagging, and coincidental. That way, look at it in that manner and look at every single news and ask yourself, is this news a lagging, leading, or a coincidental news before you start to take account of it and, press on with it. Now, among those leading, lagging, and coincidental, you can, first and foremost, they already have, each news has a rank, an impact rank. However, under the types, there are different ranks. So I want us to look at the word lagging. We're just going to use this one for a quick example. Now, under lagging, CPI is part of a lagging news, right? CPI is part of a lagging news. Average wage is part of a lagging news. And something like, let's say, business inventory is part of a lagging news. But these three news are not the same weights under lagging news. Why? CPI is the most important thing in these three cases. So CPI gets a type rank of 3, meaning under lagging news, it is extremely important. While something like wage is very important, but not as important as CPI, so it is getting a rank 2 under lagging news. And then in business inventory, it is not as important as the other two, so it is now a rank 1 in lagging news. So that is what this entire page does. Now, to get each indicator's proper rank, meaning, for example, again, we use PPI right now. For PPI's ranking, this is something I noticed. You could say the event rank plus the type rank. However, I prefer to have a lot more spectrum. That is, a lot more visibility, a lot more space to know clearer changes, right? So what I did was, rather than adding it up, I multiplied. Because if you add it up, you will notice an event rank 1 with an importance type rank 3 will be giving you 4 with the same thing as an event rank 2, type rank 2, giving you 4. It doesn't make much sense. But when you use the multiplication, you say event rank 2 multiplied by event type 2 will give you 4. For event rank 1 multiplied by type rank 3 will give you 3. So you can clearly distinct that this is lower importance than 2 by 2. That is what this entire page, news page, is all about. So I have explained to you every single part of this new page. Funny enough, everything here is manually entered, no calculations required, except for the indicator rank. And then moving on, we will get to the data cleaner. This is going to be the next video where I will tell you how to get the data from investing.com, clean it up, and have it look good enough for you to start to utilize in the next workbook, which is the news data input. So glad you guys took along this quite long video, in my opinion, but I just had to explain the whole thing, which is the backbone of the entire sheet at this point. Going forward, it is more of calculation. Matter of fact, the next 2 videos are majorly calculations. And after those 2, the rest of them are just references. So see you all in those videos. Those are like the 3 first videos are the most important. The rest of them, major references and the rest. So see you all. Peace.